Welcome to Hometown Talk. I'm Sandy Britton. My guests tonight are Plaistow landscapers. I'd like to welcome them to the show. Rick Paul of REP Landscaping, who's been in business in Plaistow for 6 years. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you.
David Jones from David A. Jones and Sons Landscaping. He's been in business in Plaistow for 17 years.
Thank you.
And Kevin Wade, lawn medic in partnerships with Rick Morgan. He's a lawn care technician and has been in Plaistow in business for 7 years. Welcome, Kevin. Tell us the difference. What's a lawn care technician?
Well, the difference between what I do and my gentleman here do is basically that we maintain lawns after they're put in, basically. We fertilize them, we control weeds, we control the insects, and other cultural practices such as aeration and overseeding if necessary.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, you don't plant the shrubs, you don't plant the trees or the flowers?
No, that's, we leave that up to the landscapers who have the young, strong backs that work for them and are able to dig the holes and do that kind of thing.
Okay, Rick, that must be you. Young, strong back. Shrubs. You look at shrubs, you have tall shrubs, little shrubs.
Mm-hmm.
How do you choose a shrub?
It depends on the site
Okay.
and what you want the site to function as. For color, either hiding, let's say, a foundation that may be a little bit too tall, so you want to hide it, sweeping through walkways. Each site really depends. You have to take a particular site and look at it.
Mm-hmm. How can you tell a healthy shrub? Especially in an evergreen. You look at an evergreen, everything's green. Okay, this is fine. I can take this home, just throw it in the ground?
You mean at a nursery before you're taking it? Most good garden centers are usually free of insects or disease. After dealing with them for quite a while, as we have, you learn to develop things to look for as far as stresses in the plant material.
Mm-hmm. David, talking about shrubs, you have flowering shrubs, you have your evergreen shrubs. Is there a flowering shrub that flowers all summer long?
Yeah, there is. Probably the most common one would be potentilla. Comes in a variety of colors. Basically flowers from the middle of June right up until the really cold weather, October.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a heavy flower, it's a small little flower, but you'll get flowers all season. And that's one comes right to mind. It'd be a potentilla. It's pretty simple little woody plant.
Mm-hmm.
Deciduous.
Now, should we protect our plants in the wintertime? I know you can drive by homes and you'll see them have these little makeshift little V's.
Oh, for sure. With the weather we're having the last half a dozen years, I think that's perhaps the most misunderstood part of the landscaping right now as far as maintenance. I think that's a big thing. Winter like this past winter, no snow, warm, cold temperatures, a lot of plants just evaporate so much water because of the weather that they dry up when the good weather comes. When they start drawing the moisture out of the soil, they're damaged.
So we're not protecting them from the snow?
No, we're protecting from the climate. The snow actually is a benefit. It insulates the ground so that the root system can still draw water. It doesn't freeze it as deep as it does when there's no snow.
How do you recommend? Do we
they have
wrap
a
'em?
common medium that you can apply called wilt-proof, which is a pine resin mixed with, I don't know what it's mixed with. Do you know, Rick? It's pine resin, though. And they just mix it
Like a wax,
with the wax. You spray it on in early November, late October, before it really gets cold.
Mm-hmm.
It has the texture of like a cucumber, how it's got that sticky
Oh, the waxy feel?
Yeah.
on the outside and it just coats the leaf of the plants.
Mm-hmm.
It's more for your evergreens than it is for the other ones, but it really does help.
Okay. Kevin, talking about lawns, we have multiple options here. You can get rolled turf, but I think you're talking lots of dollars there. Sod. Hydro seed. Can you explain some of these terminologies to us?
Well, roll turf or sodding a lawn is what we see at most of the commercial properties that go in for. They want the instant gratification, instant appearance of a lawn. I'm not a big fan of sodded lawns. That they have some problems, innate problems that come with them.
Such as?
It's a strictly one type of grass. It's primarily Kentucky bluegrass.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a lawn disease in the summertime, which happens quite frequently every summer basically, that affects Kentucky bluegrass, it's affected your entire grass population. It also, they have to be able to deliver the sod, they have to be able to produce a thatch problem actually thatched to be able to roll it and deliver it. So they'd actually deliver you a small problem when they bring it to you. So believing that that's rolling out a nice solid lawn means you're all done, you just look at it and enjoy it, is actually just the opposite. It's a higher maintenance. It's a very nice looking turf. It's not shade tolerant. If you have a nice open sunny lot, no shade anywhere, it'll do pretty well if you keep water on it.
You can keep it well fed.
Keep it,
You
keep it
really-
well fed.
You
It's
really
a,
have to give it a lot of extra
it's a
care.
higher maintenance turf. But if you run into a medium shade or a dead shade area, it'll die right out on you in the course of a year. Hydroseeding is just seeding a lawn like we all sort of, only if they use they mix it with water, they mix it with liquid fertilizer, and a medium such as paper, ground up paper.
Okay. Is that like what we've seen along 125 where they've done the bridge work and it looks like they just splayed it with green?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so that's
the green
hydroseed.
is just primarily a coloring. It's a
Psychological coloring,
It's
just
a
to show
color.
you that they did something.
right. It's basically designed. It's also designed for the applicant, so he can cover the area evenly. When the color looks nice and green or blue, he knows he's applied it evenly. So that's an aid to the applicant as much as the psychological aspect of it. But it is a good way to seed a lawn. It's fairly good for erosion problems. It sticks the ground down pretty well. And with that, you can choose your variety of seeds. You can put in the type of seed that you'd like to put in. So therefore, you can avoid the problem of the one type of grass seed like the sod lawns. You can do your nice blends.
What kind of seeds in New England should we be looking at?
Well, the ones that we have most luck with is there's three primary types of seeds. There's Kentucky bluegrass, there's fescues, which you find fescues, and your perennial ryegrasses. Now, if you blend those three types of grasses together, you have the beautiful color of the Kentucky blue, you have the shade tolerance of the fescue, and the hardiness of the perennial rye. I like to see about a 40-40-20 mix, Kentucky blue to fescue to rye. And therefore, if you have a disease problem that hits Kentucky blue, you still have 60% of the lawn that is doing well. Thus, it hides the temporary injury caused by the disease. And in most cases, that'll work out real well.
Yeah, it's pretty common. You have a wide selection of mixes. You can go up to your local Agway store and selection. They have 3-4 pages of selections. You can have it mixed how you want it. But it's all cool weather grasses.
Cool seasons, yeah. You can get the summer seasons up here, the zoysia grasses.
Yeah, I have one with that, and I hate that.
Yeah, it's poor color, but what I would recommend avoiding is the coarse fescues. There's a turf-type tall fescue or coarse fescue that many people misidentify as crabgrass. And it's actually a part of the grass seed that you purchased, and it grows very well, but it's a coarse-bladed grass, and in amongst the finer Kentucky blues and fescues, the coarse fescue looks like a weed. And I can't tell you how many times I've been asked to kill the entire lawn to remove that grass. So it's something to keep in mind if you're shopping for grass seeds, coarse fescue. So
Grass seed prices are going to be on the rise very, very soon.
Oh, they already
Oh,
have.
why?
Oh, they
Why
have?
is that?
Was it a drought?
No, it was a crop failure. See, most of our seeds grown out in Oregon and Washington State. It's not grown in New England because their climate is similar but better and longer, so they can get a better crop. Well, I don't know if it was a disease problem or what it was, but when they went out to harvest a crop, it just wasn't there. And so they, of course, the prices immediately, the next day went right up.
So does that mean we plant now? Is this a good
Well,
time to plant?
It's already too late. Most of your seed supplies have already gone up in price. And as far as planting, with the spring we're having.
You haven't hit summer yet. We're in July.
If the weather actually, the weather right now it was better than it was in the spring, as far as for lawns.
yeah, it's
A little more rain.
Yeah, there's more rain. The temperatures are cooler. Normally, though, during July and August, personally I try to cut back on new lawn installation. Wait until the very end of August, beginning of September, and through the month of September is actually the best time of the year.
yeah, if anyone's considering seeding, late August, early September is ideal. For a number of reasons, the nights are getting cooler, the temperature's cooling down.
Soil's still warm.
Soil's still warm, the crabgrass season is waning off because of the fact that crabgrass is one of the big killers of lawns. It starts as a very small plant and gets into a very large plant, and that season it's an annual, so it dies off with the first frost. So it's starting to wane off towards September. So that isn't the problem. And if you plant seed in late August, early September, by early October you have a lawn. It's almost foolproof. So.
Yeah, it's actually the best time of year.
It really is. Yeah.
Rick, you plant a lawn, it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
The owners don't maintain it. They figure it's there, it's going to last. How do you handle that? Like, how often do we water it? How much do we water it?
Well, when we initially put in a lawn, I try to sell a service package along with it, whereas we'll contact a company like Kevin's to come in and do an annual fertilization program, which consists of either 4 or 5 applications, and then we like to do the maintenance, if that's at all possible. And also, with the installation, they get a list of things not to do. Immediately after seeding, don't have a volleyball game. Try to stay off it as long as possible. Water as much as possible. But most people are on wells, so watering is limited.
Right.
So you water the best you can.
Is there a rule of thumb of how much water?
Initially, I think
It's an inch a week once a week, an inch a week.
We've been getting
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we've been getting that.
Yeah.
That's why I said we're actually having a good spring. But I mean, that's the rule of thumb.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
that's correct. There's 2 types of watering, actually. When you first put in a lawn, and the grass is actually seed opposed to lawn yet, it wants to stay continually damp.
Right.
2 times a day is perfect. Light, infrequent waterings to keep the grass seed damp. And after it germinates in 3 to 4 weeks, then you switch to your deep, infrequent waterings. An inch a week, which is exactly right. What you're doing there is wherever you put the water is where the roots will go. If you put it deep watering, the roots will go down to the soil deep. That's where you want them because they can get water out in the summertime. The ground dries from the top down.
Less stress.
The plant has a 6-inch root system. It can dig water 6 inches out of the ground and still have water. Whereas if you water infrequently, like a lot of people with sprinkler systems have a tendency, I'll water it twice a day, 10 minutes at each zone or each area. And they're producing a very surface-rooted grass plant, thus it dries out instantly. So, like I said, initial watering is as much as possible. When I put a lawn in, or I follow up one of these gentlemen, I tell them 2 to 3 times a day, water your lawn initially. Then once it's established, then switch to your once, twice a week heavily.
Okay. So they install the lawn? I mean, you install the lawn, they maintain the lawn?
Well,
Is this how this works?
Almost vice versa. They do a lot of the site work. They do the prep, so they have the equipment to bring the loam in and spread it, and they usually seed it, and then in most cases we try to follow up. Because what usually happens is their seed comes up very well, but so all soil has seeds in it, weed seeds in it. So you've got the grass coming up and you've got the weeds coming up. So now at a certain time, when the grass is now strong enough to withstand the application to kill the weeds, you can then apply that. So that's where we come in. We're licensed to put down these pesticides to kill weeds. And,
Lawn medic.
Yeah, we do.
Explains everything. There's a doctor.
So,
They fix all the
we take it
problems.
over from when they put it in. We do some maintaining and some fixing of lawns. We have machines that can incorporate new seeds into established lawns. But primarily for large lawns, installation lawns, we do that for the landscape.
You and I were talking about equipment. You think of a landscaper, you say, okay, he needs a lawnmower and a body to push. A little bit more than that, huh?
yes.
What kind of equipment do you need?
It depends on what aspect of landscaping you're going to do. If you're strictly a maintenance landscaper, you can get away with a pickup truck, some lawn mowers, maybe some hedge trimmers, string trimmers, trailer. If you want to get into the site work, then you need the backhoe, the tractor with a York rake, the dozer, dump trucks, wheelbarrow. It's endless. It's absolutely endless. I mean, every time you turn around, there's a new toy, equipment on the market, and you can just spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hydro seeders.
It's just endless. There's too much, and they've refined it over the last 10, 15 years, they refined the landscaping tools and equipment so much that you actually have to be a professional to really handle most of it. I mean, you have to know the new technologies, the new seed blends, everything that goes into it. It's no longer just some guy taking good luck with the fertilizer and I'll try to cut your lawn, or whatever. But there's a lot into it. There's a lot of new plants, the grass seeds, they're constantly changing and upgrading, hybriding. So, I mean, it's a constant change. You have to really stay up on top of it. Seminars, reading. You really have to, if you want to do it.
Now, Kevin mentioned that he's licensed. Now, that's to deal with the chemicals for the lawn. Are landscapers licensed?
Vast majority, no.
It's not a state requirement, then?
It is a state requirement if you're going to be applying pesticides and herbicides.
Right, it is.
Yeah.
To do chemicals, you need to be licensed.
You'll find most, unlike myself, it's become a specialized market. And years ago, it was fine. You could buy it anywhere and spread whatever you wanted. But now they have the knowledge of the toxics that they have, and that somebody like Kevin has to be licensed. And I'm more than happy to give it to them and let them handle it. First of all, the fine's pretty hefty if you can fool around. And,
Insurance is very costly.
Insurance is very costly, so what you have is a specialized group like Kevin. And they do a good job.
Okay, you touched on numerous things here. Insurance, you're talking liability insurance, and all you gentlemen have to carry liability insurance.
Expensive.
Which adds to the cost of doing the work, I'm sure.
It's the cost of doing business.
Yeah, but it's become a big cost. Insurance cost is
Astronomical.
Right. To be in business now as a real landscaper, we have a saying, Joe Pickups. And these are little guys who may be out of work or laid off, and they get a lawnmower. They'll go out and cut 10 lawns. Well, 9 out of 10 times they have absolutely no insurance. They have nothing. So their overhead obviously is quite low. But our overhead in our business, either between equipment and insurance, is astronomical. This equipment is not cheap. The usual setup for a professional landscaper to pull up in front of your house, he probably has $30,000 worth of equipment sitting in front of your house to cut your lawn. So it takes a lot of lawns to maintain that equipment.
It certainly does. They mentioned chemicals. That's a touchy subject. We apply the chemicals on the lawn. Does it seep into our groundwater? Are they poisonous?
Well, the chemical category you're talking about is pesticides.
Okay.
These chemicals, there's all types of chemicals. There's chemicals in food.
Okay. Go ahead, clarify our chemicals that we're using.
The chemicals that we deal with are pesticides, and they're
Okay.
designed to kill pests that invade our environment and our house, outside in the lawn, different things. So, are they safe? They are poison. They are actually poisons, and they are designed to kill things. So, in their concentrated form, when you go, when we purchase, they say a herbicide to control dandelions on your lawn. The herbicide, in fact, is poison. If I was to ingest it, I would be very sick. Or if you had, if you had gone to your local hardware store and purchased some Weed Be Gone, which is a herbicide to control dandelions also, and you left it in your garage and your child accidentally got a hold of it, you would be calling the Poison Control Center very quickly. So, no, they aren't safe in that aspect. But when applied properly, they are designed to do a specific job, to take care of a certain pest, and then degrade, biodegrade, one way or another. There's several ways to do that. They biodegrade through the sun breaks them down, the bacteria in the soil breaks them down. So when the EPA tests these products, they test them to see, okay, what happens to these products after you put them on my ground? Because many people ask me, you put pesticides on my lawn, how can it not end up in my water? All right, you get a heavy rainstorm, it soaks into the ground, the water goes in the ground, how can these chemicals not? Well, when applied at the correct rates, the EPA has figured that these products are designed to do a certain job, and they degrade rather quickly. The problem comes in is when they're overapplied. I know it's pretty typical where if a homeowner had a problem with weeds or ants, we'll go to the store and he'll read the back of if he reads the back of the label at all, he'll read it and say, well, I'll put 1 ounce per gallon. But I have a real bad problem. I'll think I'll put 3 or 4 ounces. Well, the the soil microbes cannot biodegrade 3 or 4 ounces applied per 1,000 square feet. So therefore, it has to kill the insects, definitely. But then, it's still there, so it can leach after a certain amount of time.
Now, can these be bought over the counter so anyone can walk in and purchase
the
these
products I
chemicals?
use are general use pesticides, and you can buy them. The weed feeds, it's a fertilizer with a weed control. It's a very similar weed control to the ones that all the lawn care industry uses. The insects fertilizer with insect control. It's the same products that I virtually put on your lawn. So yes, anyone.
Just different concentrations, that's all.
Different concentrations and needs to say lower quality.
Lower
but,
quality,
yeah, to be able to put. So basically, what I recommend strongly is that if you buy a bag of weed and feed and it says it covers 10,000 square feet and you only have 7,000 square foot lawn, don't use the whole bag. You know, you should have a third of it. Use 3,000 square feet with that bag left over. And you might ask, how do I find out how big my lawn is? Well, you can go through the measurement routine, take out the old tape measure. Or what I always recommend is call a lawn care company. They'll gladly come out and measure your lawn and give you a free estimate. That's basic. The first thing I do.
Fertilization company.
Now I know how to get all springs.
Basically, the first thing I do is I measure the lawn, and on my analysis it says you have 8,000.
We do the same to you.
So,
Got to bid it, let them measure it.
Yeah.
so yeah, be careful. The products are safe when used properly.
When used properly. Okay. Rick, I grew up in a small town, and my father had 5 beautiful maples right along the roadside. Well, X amount of years later, the trees are no longer there. They've been killed by the road saw. Is it still safe to plant maple trees in this area in New England?
Yes, I don't see any reason why you can't. Certain maple trees are sometimes planted in the wrong locations, and therefore they don't last. But as far as planting them, I wouldn't have a problem doing it. We plant many.
Except for she's talking real close, the old sugar maples.
Oh,
right on
right,
the
right on the
road.
road.
Like a
Yeah.
maple,
Yeah, that is
maple lab in
salt.
Atkinson.
Yeah,
So-
that's salt damage, until they start cutting back on their soil applications, which will hopefully happen someday. There's not much you can do about
We
that.
don't line the trees. We don't line the roads with trees.
then
in
again-
it.
And that was a common problem too, was the fact that they would line an avenue like Academy Ave or something with nothing but sugar maples or one variety. What happens is if a disease comes in, like Kevin said with lawn, same thing happens. Disease get one, it can get all of them. That's what happened to the Dutch elm disease. That's how it got a hold, because they'd have these avenues of elms, and when it got into one tree, it just took everything, and now it's spread over.
When's the best time to plant a tree?
Anytime is a good time. Spring, summer, or fall. If it's nursery dug, as far as transplanting one, like taking one out of your neighbor's yard, then there are certain times, and
You've
that's.
sown it, huh?
Yeah, at night.
Okay, go ahead. What do you do?
Generally, if it's already nursery dug,
Okay.
you can plant it spring, summer, or fall. Granted, your watering requirements are going to be a little greater, because of the summer stresses, but you can do it basically at any time.
And if you're digging it up from, let's say, the woods,
Okay.
is there a different scenario?
Yes, each tree is different. Generally early spring or late fall, before budding or when they start to lose their leaves, as a general statement.
Okay. Dave, there's controversy. I've read that if lightning hits your tree, okay, do you paint over the lightning mark, or do you just let nature take its course and just let the sap run out?
That is a large area. The old school was that they had a special resin that you put right over it, paint over it, whatever. But nowadays they tend not to. What they like to do is recut the wound. Say if a branch got knocked off, you cut it close to the trunk without damaging the trunk and let it heal by itself. Unless it's a really huge wound. But generally, the smaller branches and stuff like that, you can leave them alone. A good healthy tree, within a few years, will cover that right over if it's cut right.
So you don't need to paint it
You
or
don't
cover
really
it
need to.
with anything?
Part of the controversy was the fact that it would lock in diseases or insect problems or something if you can get right to it. And then it just make the problem worse. It seals everything in instead of letting it breathe and naturally heal.
How do you know if your tree has a disease?
Uh,
Outside of the obvious.
Well, yeah, Typically, you can't tell unless you either see something caused by insects or like maybe boars or if the leaves are not filling out the way they should, if they're smaller than they should be, or the tree is just not filling out well, then you have to start looking. Sometimes a simple fertilizing on a tree, believe it or not, you do have to fertilize nice trees and if you want them healthy in certain environments.
Now, do you fertilize the tree with the same?
No, they have
Things
they have a special. You can use anywhere from tree spikes down to they have a special plant food, and some companies inject it right into the ground, liquid. But it can be recommended. I have a tree in my own yard. I have to watch carefully. If I don't have the right spring, again, the weather plays a big factor. Stress is on everything. I mean, the spring was a very stressful winter and spring on a lot of plant material. So luckily, it's still doing better than I anticipated.
Although in the early spring, there was a lot of stress on the lawns.
Yeah, the lawns.
I mean, it seemed like we were in August, with the browning of some of the lawns.
Rain was very
They
dry.
needed extra food, I think.
The lack of snowfall again, plants dehydrated. They had a thing called, if the ground thaws out and then freezes and thaws out and freezes, it causes a snow mold disease and stuff. So a nice, it's funny, weather is made up of extremes. The average is made up of extremes, and we seem to be in the extreme. Every month, every season is the most. It's the driest in winter in 100 years, and then we have the wettest June. This was the wettest June in many years, and fortunately, because it was the driest May in many years. So there's an average of okay. So far, it's okay. So.
But we're not getting the weather we really need. We're not getting the snow cover you need in the winter, and you're not getting those long periods of rain, soft rain, gentle rains in the spring. You're not getting them, and they're very important.
So how will our plant life adjust to that, or will we have to adjust to what we're planting?
I think people have to adjust. The plant will to a certain degree. Mature plants less likely. Younger plants growing into the environment might have a better chance in certain aspects, but you may have to feed them a little bit more. You definitely have to water them. Just general care. Pay attention to the environment in your yard, which a lot of people are doing now. The yard in New England is becoming more important than it used to be in the past. We're Yankees here, and we didn't care. Cut the grass and get your house and just work all the time. But now they're putting a lot of their properties, and it shows.
That's good.
And that's an important thing Dave brought up, is watering your plants. I notice a lot of people will plant a shrub or a tree in the fall, and it makes it through the winter and it buds, and then they never touch it again. And then we go through stressing times where we have no natural rain. It's important that they do go out and they do, help it along for the long run.
Oh, okay, so once the plant is taken, it still needs to be babied
Every
through.
once in a while.
At least for about a year, you have to watch it carefully until the root system develops to take care of it and make it strong.
It's most evident on like your broadleaf evergreens because you can see the wilting. It's very visible.
Okay.
In some of your other plants, it's more difficult. So you can use one plant as an indicator for the rest as far as watering.
Okay. Speaking of shrubs, when and how do you prune? I know mine are growing like weeds right now. Should I prune off all the new growth?
You want this one, Dave? You want me to take it?
Well, I don't care.
Go ahead, Rick.
Being landscapers, it's difficult to do the right thing at the right time all the time.
Right.
So we do a lot of our pruning in July.
Okay.
Certain shrubs, certain ornamental shrubs, you may want to do at other times. And it depends on what you're trying to have the plant do. If you want it to flower, or if you want to give it, let's say, the haircut effect, where it's really tight, you'll see a lot of mature plants in Haverhill, where they've all massed together, and they're just a very tight planting. Those plants you're going to probably trim once or twice a year, not the once in July. Your fruit trees you want to do in the wintertime. So each plant is generally at a different time. It could be in the winter, it could be in the summer, spring, fall.
Most of the ornamentals will be done. Stuff around your foundation in your yard, you'll be doing them anywhere from the end of June through July. Typically, why we pick that season is because we only have to do it once. If you wait a little longer, you only have to do it once. Nowadays, with cost is a big factor. They don't want to see you in there every week clipping away like they used to in the old days. Now you have to plan everything. Everything's by a season, by a time of the month. A lot of it's driven by economics.
Okay. You mentioned fruit trees. Now, I've heard 90-degree angles, 45-degree angles, but I can never remember which one you're supposed to cut and which one you're supposed to leave.
Oh, okay, for cutting on the limbs.
Right.
On fruit trees, usually it's the vertical growth. You'll see it just comes straight up off a branch, a lateral branch. Usually you have to take all of those off. On the other limbs, usually you try to cut somewhere near a bud, and it is at a degree. You don't want to straight off cut. Although a lot of us still have to do it that way. I mean, just for speed, you have to get in there. A large tree can take you several hours or even a half a day to do a large tree. But cut off all the vertical growth right away, and then just pick the branches and try to form the shape you want to do. Always try to keep the branches up too, a little bit off the ground. Gets more air, more light through the tree.
You're talking willow trees.
Willow trees, no, we cut those down with a chainsaw.
Is it true that willow trees will harm a septic system? That their roots go for water?
They might in a leach field, sure. They're a very, very strong driven tree. They consume a large amounts of water, more than any other tree. It has been done, you know. I mean, older trees will go right through pipes and everything if they can force their way through it. And they're durable. I mean, I've got some trees on a residence in Haverhill that's, they're 100 years old and they've been blown down by 2 hurricanes, one in '58 or something like that, and one in the late '70s, and they still grow. I mean, blown right off 10 feet off the ground, and they come back. So,
Resistant.
they're resistant. I mean, a log off a willow tree will grow if it's water.
They have a very fibrous root system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why they absorb so much water.
If you want a nice lawn, don't have a willow tree.
No.
Don't have a willow tree.
Landscapers hate willow trees worse than anything.
Maple trees too. Maple trees are very surface root tree.
Yeah, they can be.
And they don't like grass when they compete with the grass.
So in other words, the grass won't grow with these trees?
This
This isn't something I'd even considered.
Yeah, willow trees are any surface root trees. You've got a lot of fibrous hairs just underneath the surface of the turf, and they're very competitive. They utilize the same nutrients when I feed the lawn. I actually feeding the tree too. So.
And that will drive the roots up
Yeah,
closer.
yeah.
The roots of the tree will actually come close to the surface of the lawn, looking for the food.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So certain types of trees, if you for an overall landscape picture, you want to keep in mind that if you want a nice lawn and nice ornamentals, pick the trees that are more deeply rooted. You can grow,
Such as?
You can grow grass right to the base of an oak tree, pine tree, believe it or not.
A pine tree?
Yes,
Sure.
pine tree. Yes, you just have to keep the soil neutralized with lime. It's a very acidic medium. The pine needles fall in. Just keep the ground well neutralized and with lime, and you can grow grass right to the trunk of pine trees.
Oaks, yeah.
Oaks,
Yeah.
pines. It's some of your very expensive ornamentals, the Japanese maples and things like that. You want to keep the grass away from them, away from the trunks a little bit.
So typically we do on a finer residence, you do anyway, so you end up putting a tree ring around.
Yeah, because you don't want to damage the bark with mowing equipment or anything like that. So that's a factor when deciding on overall landscape. I want a lawn and I want trees. You should choose the right trees. And primarily, the sugar maples are a fairly inexpensive tree. They grow quickly. And as a rule of thumb, anything that grows quickly is less expensive and a little less.
Another one to really stay away from would be even more than a willow would be the hybrid poplar.
Oh yes, rag trees I call them.
Oh yeah, I mean they grow 6, 8, 10 feet a year.
Yeah.
And the root system grows about that much above the ground. I mean, they come this far out of the ground.
Poplar trees.
Yeah.
And how do you work around that?
Yeah, well, with a curse. You never heard a landscaper swear? There's a point when they start reaching 40 or 50 feet, which only takes maybe 10 years or less.
Good wind blows it down.
Yeah, that should really, really like to knock them down with a bulldozer. I mean, people make a lot of mistakes. They see this new stuff, hybrid, grow 6 feet a year. Fine, that's what I want. I want quick. Well, you pay for that quick. Really good.
Basically, poplar trees, it stimulates a lot of border plantings and block off the neighbors' views. And a heavy wind will blow them down. They're not good. They're not a well-rooted tree at all.
Onto the neighbor.
So you're recommending a pine tree? I'm just amazed.
Yeah, strangely enough, most people can't grow grass on the pine trees.
Not the ones you pick out in the woods. Again, it would be nursery stock.
Yeah.
They're full, they're lush. And if you take good care of them, and like he says, the fertilizing. It's very, very important in lining. You shouldn't have any problem. And the fescues that they have now grow well in the shade, the grass seed. Again, there's something they're developing constantly. They're developing grasses that will grow pretty much in the dark. So you can do almost anything if you read up and really do your research.
And have the money.
And have the money.
You notice that people are putting a lot of bark down. There's all different kinds of bark, I understand.
Oh, boy, that's another part of it.
Yes.
Okay, you want to explain what we have for barks and what you recommend?
What I know we have in this area, we have what they call a straight hemlock, a pine fir, hardwood, some hardwoods mix, and then a pine hemlock mix. And then some places have demolition.
Yeah, they
They're-
actually do, so you do have to be cautious.
Yep, there's a company down in Woburn. What they publicly say it. They take pallets and building debris and they just keep processing it down and
Right.
And then
reprocess it.
bark?
And they
Well,
make
they'll
a,
mix it with it too, to add the color, it's just like a chemist working. They'll play with it until they get the right mixture.
Now, is that good or bad?
It's, well, obviously it's not good, especially if it's got paint and resins.
I mean, you get certain,
Certain applications, maybe industrial or something, might be all right. Don't want it on
You
home.
don't recommend it?
I'm not sure. I saw some with some asphalt shingles in it. You know, and a few other things.
Nervous about that, yes.
So you do have to be cautious.
You know, and especially if you're going to put it near plant material. You know, if you have asphalt, well, it could have been, you know, now you could have some rubber and some creosote, and now you have other chemicals that could be in it that could harm your shrubs, or if you wanted to plant flowers down the line. Now you'd have to remove that.
And
So I
soil,
wouldn't
yeah,
recommend it.
Yeah, the soil could already be damaged at that point.
Now, is the purpose of bark just decorative, or does it serve any useful purpose?
Multiple purposes.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, it retains moisture. It breaks down and adds humus to the soil. A lot of people overbark, I've noticed. Have you noticed that? You know,
No,
that-
they'll have it that thick. Every year they want that 4 or 6 inches on it.
And what
just
do you
don't-
need?
Well, once you make your initial application, probably anywhere from 2 to 3 inches is all you need, just to spruce up a little bit.
Just a light dressing.
Just light dressing, then after a while, probably every 2 to 3 years.
You just replenish it, or do you
Yeah.
have to remove it and put in?
Well, if you overdo it, like Rick says, you will have to, we do see people making that mistake, and then you have to pay you pay to have it put in, now you gotta pay to take it out. So you have to be cautious.
And it's easy. I mean, we've over-mulched a couple of sites by accident, you know, where the original bed had a divot or something in it. So you try to take care of the divot by adding mulch, you know, because it's a quick, immediate fix, you know, versus doing the proper thing as far as bringing in loam or something and filling it with that. You give it the immediate fix, and I notice it's the easy way, but it's not the right way.
As far as the mulch, the big trend in the last 2 years seems to be hemlock. At one time, the only place you saw that was in the affluent suburbs around Boston, because it's very, very expensive.
That's the red stuff, right?
Yeah, and
Orange.
yeah, orange, reddish, but people are paying for the color and for the name. It's like everyone's buying a Honda Civic. Well, he bought one, I need one, right? And they're paying through the nose for it, and it doesn't do anything different than any other mulch. It's just purely either aesthetics or the fact that a lot of people don't know the difference. I tend to steer people away from it if I can, because you're paying probably close to what, 30% more, 25% more,
Just for a color?
just for the color. So that's a significant cost, especially in large areas when you're using a lot of it. I mean, if they
Well-
demand it, you buy it.
You know, a lot of people say, well, that won't have insects, that won't have bugs. With all the mulch that I use, I've yet to come across any that had any insects in it.
Turtles, that's the only thing I've ever found.
Turtles?
Yeah.
Kids would be happy with turtles.
Well, because it heats up. That insect thing, is, like Rick says, that's a big fallacy. You
It
might-
does
You
not
know,
attract
treated
ants?
mulch.
Treated mulch.
Treated
Well,
mulch.
mulch isn't treated. What happens is, because of the way it's ground, and especially now, again, that's become a specialized area. Specialized people, specialized equipment for it. It reaches temperatures upwards of 160 degrees, and insects cannot live in it. You may find it in tree chippings, you know, where a tree company comes in, chips up all your trees, they take the problems, beehives, the ant hills, everything. And they can probably usually live in the wood chip pile, but they won't in the mulch pile because of the moisture content and the heat.
And if they could live in that heat, as soon as you spread it out, the heat is no longer there.
Yeah.
So then they would,
Yeah, once it's spread, you can, the insects can infest into it.
Yeah.
They actually like
Once
living,
it's come down,
It's
yeah.
wood, your wood eating insects, you can't carpenter ants. It is actually wood.
Mhm.
Termites, one thing you want to be real careful of when you're applying rock mulcher on your foundation is don't let it touch the wood. Don't let it touch the bottom sill of the house, because you have a perfect route of entry from the termite going from the ground, which lives outside.
Okay, right.
It goes up through the black mulch and it's touching the wood in your house, so it has a nice route of entry for
Mhm.
that.
Another sore point I have with people who mulches is a lot of people use plastic. Please never use plastic. Now, they have materials that you can put down, fabrics. They have a multiple number of fabrics that you can put down underneath that'll last many, many times longer than plastic. But they let the nutrients and the moisture go through. Just think of it. If you fill this room with a plastic sheet, the rug will never get wet. But what
That's
happens
true.
is you have moles, you have a lot of insects live underneath them. It's just a nice dry home for almost anything. So do not use plastic. A lot of people use plastic.
So the plastic does more harm than
It does
anything
more
else.
harm than it does good.
Quality landscape fabric is much better.
Oh, yeah. A good fabric will last, good quality landscape fabric will last about 15 years exposed to the sun. So on the ground, it'll probably last 25.
Mhm.
But,
Now, can the average consumer purchase this?
well, not at your hardware store. They have these flimsy little ones they do call landscape fabrics, but you'd be better going to a good nursery guidance center and asking for a professional quality.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't recommend, I mean, they do sell it, I'm sorry for the vendors, but it isn't that good. You have to get a commercial quality.
it's like anything else. You have to read the mill, the thickness, and that has a lot to do with it. Some hardware stores, I think one or two local ones, one does have a couple of different varieties, and you could go there.
Mm-hmm.
You really just have to shop around and make sure you're getting the right geomat.
Okay. Getting back to lawns, what's the most important thing to do to get ready for winter?
Well, once again, I'll go back. It's the perfect time to seed. So if it's getting into late September, early October, and you have some bare spots, it's time to don't forget to go out there and seed now. Even if the seed doesn't germinate completely, it'll a lot of it will overwinter. It'll come up early in the spring. Then therefore you really apply your correct crabgrass controls in the spring. Winter fertilization. There's a lot of talk about that, and what it's primarily made to do is when the grass plant, there's a certain time in the fall when the grass actually stops growing. You don't have to mow it so much, but it's still nice and green. So at that time, you have if you feed it, it's actually growing a root system, opposed to it's not growing up like spring application of fertilizer. You have to cut along every 5 days to keep up with it. Whereas a fall application of fertilizer, the grass doesn't grow that much. So what's actually happening? The grass is actually growing down. The roots are growing. So it puts a good root. So it's really producing a root system, and it's actually almost like a marathon runner who stores carbohydrates, who carb up before a race.
Right.
The plant is actually storing carbohydrates in its root system. Therefore, in the early spring, all of a sudden the lawn turns green, and it's because it's utilizing the storage that it has from the fall fertilization.
Mm-hmm.
So those two things, spot seeding and fertilizing in the fall, is ideal.
Now, do you recommend doing the same for your shrubs and your trees and
Oh,
everything else?
certainly. Water them well before the freeze sets in. If it's been a real dry fall, give it a lot of water. The food, you could do it in the fall. A lot of people do it in the spring, but you could do it in the fall. And as far as the lawn, just make sure there's not a large buildup of leaves on the lawn. Generally, we like to keep them as clean, and we cut the lawn fairly short, especially nowadays. But I mean, if you leave a big pile of leaves, when you rake them off in the spring, that lawn's gone.
So you should be raking twice a year, spring and fall?
Oh, yeah.
The fall,
Is the most important thing.
the grass does not like to be covered with a matting of leaves. You should rake I recommend, if you really want a nice lawn, rake a lot. If you can't see your grass, get out there and rake it.
Mm-hmm.
Get it up.
You'll also want to put the wilt proof down on your shrubs, which we spoke about earlier.
Mhm.
Okay. Mowing your lawns. How long is my grass supposed to be? This long? This long?
It depends on the type of grass. and the weather conditions. Generally, we mow at 3 inches, and then towards the summer, if it's drought, we'll go up a little bit. Then in the fall, we start to cut back. In the spring, just try to cut it, just try to keep up. You know, with the fertilization programs most of our customers are on, their lawns just, I don't want to say grow like weeds, but
They grow out of control. I mean,
yes,
it's
they
really,
just really
May
take
and
off.
June, on a good normal spring, May and June is a tough month for a landscaper to keep up with the grass. Because it grows, what, 4, 5, sometimes 6 inches a week.
Now, do you recommend a mulching lawnmower?
They
Or should
haven't
you be
perfected
raking?
it. They haven't perfected it. That's I've looked at them deeply, because it's really time-saving, cost-effective, but in order that, the ones they have for commercial, you have to follow the commercial people. If they've developed something for the commercial user, then they'll develop for the homeowner. They haven't perfected it yet. They've got a ways to go.
So
Couple of
you're
years.
raking after every mowing?
Well, they have bagging attachments,
Bagging.
and it all depends. After he fertilizes, we don't rake, because we want to control as much of the nutrients right back into the soil. But every lawn's different, it's like a person.
Well, my recommendation on that basically is to, if you're not fertilized, you just have a lawn and you just want to keep it, you just want to keep it at an okay level, then yeah, mulching is fine, because you're adding the decomposition of the leaves are actually adding nitrogen to the soil and feeding the lawn. You have to mow more often. You can't let it get 6 inches and mulch your lawn, because you'll just have big clumps of matting, which will smother the grass. Most of the time I recommend all the lawns that I do is that I feed the lawn. I give the lawn all the food it needs. It doesn't need any additional food by you leaving your clippings. So I usually recommend catching. And it's
Your lawns do grow awfully well.
yes. And cutting height is they're absolutely correct. 2.5, 3 inches, 3.5 inches. It's
Well, we're at 3.5 now.
Most people think it's very tall. It's like that tall. And then I have most of my problem with people who golf. Because they go to the golf course and they see a lawn about the height of this carpet. And then they come home and they want to cut their lawns at that height. But the golf course is a different type of grass. It's a bench grass. It's designed to be able to cut very short. The grasses that we have, the Kentucky Blues, the fescues, and the ryes, they won't tolerate cutting heights below an inch. If you cut the lawn an inch, you're actually killing it. So
Why is that?
they're just the nature.
Because of the way that they leaf out.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
plus, what you have to keep in mind, the shoot, the green part of the grass is called the shoot. It's actually a photocollector. The sun hits it, it then produces the energy in the root system. So an easy analogy of what's going on is if you have an inch of shoot, you can only produce enough energy with the sunlight hitting it to produce about an inch of root. Whereas if you have a 3-inch shoot, it'll produce enough energy to develop a deeper root system, 3 to 4 to 5 inches. So it's very important to cutting height. Cutting is so important. I want to stress the fact that my best lawns are the ones that the pros cut. They cut at the right heights, they cut at the right frequencies. And for cutting a lawn is a stressful thing for the lawn. If you had a nice shrub out front and you cut half of it off, you'd hurt the shrub. So same theory with the grass plant. If a grass plant is maintained at 3 inches and you let it get to 6 inches and cut it, you're cutting half of the plant off, that's stressing it. Then it has to recover and then start growing again. So you're constantly stressing your lawn by cutting it. Whereas if the pros go in there every week, the plant is maintained at 3 inches, it gets to 4 inches, they cut it. So it's much less stress. The plant doesn't have to recover. And under stressful times, summertime is stressful for lawns. Cool season grasses enjoy temperatures 65 to 75 degrees. When it gets 85 degrees, the plant is under stress already. It doesn't need stress from the homeowner going away for a 2-week vacation and letting the lawn get 6 inches and coming home and cutting it. And all of a sudden, like behind him, the lawn's all brown. So mowing is probably the most important thing you can do for your lawn. I can't stress enough.
And by cutting higher in the summer, also, you have to use less water. Because now the grass itself can shade its own root system and shade the soil, so it's not dehydrating. If you cut it too short, it opens everything right up to the sun and stresses it right out. Anywhere from 3.5 inches in the normal summer months are pretty good.
Sometimes we even opt not to mow it,
Yeah.
just because it's under a stressful condition.
Too hot, whatever.
Most people ask me, well, what is 3.5 inches? Well, I just say you can't set your mow too high. Right this time of year, if you have a F or E setting on your lawnmower, which goes A through E, we're on E. You can't cut it too high as far as I'm concerned. So, and most people don't like doing that, but,
Yeah, it looks long.
A sharp lawnmower blade is very, very important
yes, that
also.
too.
Very, well-maintained mower. You don't let all this grass stay up underneath the mower and mold and set up, because it'll spread diseases in the sharp blade, so that you're not ripping the lawn apart, you're cutting.
Slicing.
And try not to do it when it's wet.
Yeah.
You don't want to cut early, 6:30 in the morning like certain neighbors may do on a Saturday. You want to wait, for a little bit of the dew to get off.
Yeah, a
then,
couple hours of sun.
Mhm.
Usually, we don't do any cutting before 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. It's obvious that you gentlemen work very well and very closely together. Do you offer your consumer some type of a warranty on the work that you do, or can you?
It depends on the work. If you're doing construction work, you try, most plantings or lawns, you try to offer some kind of guarantee. I mean, let's face it, you put a nice new lawn in it, you put 100 pounds of seed on it, and it rains 4 inches that night, one of the worst storms of the season. You have to work with the customer somehow, but I mean, they can't hold you liable. I mean, I've actually seen whole lawns just washed down into the Merrimack River, so it can happen.
Yeah, we try to warranty everything we do. Needless to say, if you're doing a spring seeding with the potential of heavy rains, you have to factor that in a little bit into the price of the job. So there's two ways. It's really communication with the potential clients. What do you expect? What's your expectation levels? And then work with them, and what's their budgetary restraints. I've always said, if you give me an open checkbook, I'll grow you a nice lawn. But,
Yeah, sure, you can do anything with money.
Right. But most people don't give me an open checkbook. So you have to
And in these times now, you have to really work. You have to work twice as hard with a lot less. So you're always constantly trying to maneuver them around. Well, let's try this. This is a program you could try. It's not as good as, but it's better than nothing.
Communication and educating your client, I think, is very important.
Education is very
The more they understand what you've done, the more they'll be able to maintain it and watch for things themselves. Because, you can't always go back to a site. Some people live on dead-end streets, and it's not like living on Main Street where you can continually drive by and monitor it. So if you educate your customer, they're able to give you a call and say, hey, I'm not sure, or, what about this? And you're able to have a lot less problems on a site.
And you can't trust Mother Nature.
Well, especially now. You used to be able to. You used to be able to say, well, we're going to get 4 feet of snow in the winter. It's going to rain all of April. May's going to be, pretty good. Now, you don't know. You don't know until that day. You watch the weathermen, they're wrong. I wish I had that job. That's well paid. They're always wrong.
What do you gentlemen do in the wintertime?
Cry?
Cry. That's what we pray for snow. We've had a lot of winters lately. Back in the 80s, you didn't worry about it. 70s and 80s, I spent the winter, I'd go to Florida or something on vacation. And because in our season, we work 16 to 20 hours a day.
Well, that's why I was amazed I can get all 3 of you gentlemen here at 7 o'clock.
Well, you're after the 4th of July, too, so things kind of...
Yeah.
My winter is fairly short. We don't stop spraying lime until mid to late November.
Yeah, basically the same.
We have 600 lawns we do approximately. We have to, button up the shop, get everyone. We have a renewal process that takes place in the spring. So if we get done by Christmas, we're happy. And then come
Then the paperwork,
mid-February, early March.
Yep, taxes,
We're back.
January.
Yeah.
We're back again. So we have probably 8 weeks that we actually cannot be insane. But I would tend to, if I added up all the hours I work a lot more than the average 40-hour.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
Oh, I'm
person,
sure.
yeah.
I'm sure. Let's
And
say
then-
self-employed.
Yeah, we're even not being, besides being self-employed, being in charge, in the spring, it's a 7-day-a-week job. Morning till night, 6 until 10 every night.
Doesn't go away.
Doesn't go away.
And then in the winter, we do a lot of plowing and sanding.
You do?
Well, in the old days.
We put the plows on quite a bit this winter. Wax the sander a couple
I found
times.
a curse for the winter. I left my plow on all winter. I should take it off in between storms and snow more frequent.
When did it snow?
Well,
But, now I remember what I was saying. Being plowing, you're on a 24-hour call. It's difficult to make any sort of plans, to go out to dinner or something, because you watch the weathermen and they say possibility of snow. And it makes it very difficult.
I mean, more than once I've gone all the way to Conway just to turn around and come back, because, you know, I'm constantly in touch with somebody. Yeah, it started to snow, we got 3 inches.
And then it melts.
Yeah, back and it's gone.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for being on the show with me.
Thank you.
Kevin Wade, David Jones, Rick Paul. Wish you luck. Enjoy your summer. And I hope we get a lot of snow this year. And not only the skiers, but the landscapers.
Well, the way it's going, probably next week.
No, a little bit too early. Thank you for staying tuned to Hometown Talk. See you next month.